Life is short. I know it's a cliche, but it's true. We don't know how much time we have left on the planet. You could have 40 days. You could have 40 years. What are you going to do with that ticking clock? My father-in-law, whom I love dearly, is fond of reminding us that if you wake up every morning determined to be a better version of yourself than you were yesterday, you'll live a rich and full life. Sounds easy, right? You wake up in the morning, you look at yourself in the mirror, you say, hey, Jesse, be your best self today. No problem. But of course, there's life. Life gets in the way. There's love and petty jealousy. There's work and petty politics. There's creative output and petty pride of ownership. It was very kind of Tina and Kevin to invite me here to speak today about climate, but here's the thing, I'm not a creative. I don't design, I don't draw, I don't sketch, I don't paint. If you ask my 2-year-old daughter, she'll tell you I can't even carry a tune. What I have repeatedly been is a founder's lieutenant inside of very creative companies like Squarespace and Etsy, companies that are full of creative people and companies whose mission is to build software and services for creative people. So what does it mean to be a founder's lieutenant? My job is to help a founder articulate their dreams so that we can have a chance at making them come true. My job is to help a founder find his or her own voice and hopefully along the way become a better version of themselves. Because here's the thing, when you're building a company, it happens at an intersection. It's the intersection of the values and ideals that the founder holds dear and the values you have to be able to scale an organization. It's only at that intersection that you can actually build a company and scale a company, one that is going to be here long after we're gone. And I can assure you, Founder's Lieutenant, easiest job in tech. So I'm not a creative, but I surely am creative. If any of you have read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, you know that creativity sits at the intersection of art and engineering. And building a company, it's art and engineering. I solve complicated problems. Difficult problems like how do you create an environment that nurtures creative people? How do you nurture the creative engineers and the designers, the marketers and the customer service folks? The people that build the products that you love and deliver them into the marketplace. So what I've done essentially is dedicate my professional life to the pursuit of perfecting business environments. Perfecting the business environments where, with the proper effort, you and me and all of us have the best chance of becoming our best selves, the best chance of doing our best work, the best chance of being heard, and the best chance, of course, of being happy. Happy like Bob Ross is every day when he went to work. And if you're too young to know who Bob Ross is, just Google it. So I'm here today to talk to you about these work climates. How do you build work climates that nurture creative people? And I'm also here to talk about what you have to bring into these climates so that these climates can be successful. Now, hopefully we can all agree, a company is actually quite a simple thing. It's a collection of people. And if we can agree that a company is just a collection of people, then you have to understand that everything I do is all about the people. Here's the truth about me. When I came up, I never had a mentor. I've never had a mentor. And worse, I've never had a good manager. 20 years. I've worked in environments where it was an uphill struggle to be my best self. Worse, I've worked for and with people who caused me to stray far from my best self. And I'm not blameless. I've lost sight of the values that matter to me along the way, that's true. So when I became a leader, I chose as my life's work to do the opposite. To do the opposite for the many, mostly young people that I have the privilege of working with. I believe that true leadership has to be for the benefit of the followers not for the enrichment of the leaders. The best thing about Creative Mornings is the fact that we all get to talk to each other before the talk and after the talk. And I'm sure in all the people you meet, you see there's all kinds of careers and there's all kinds of paths to success. If you look at my resume or my LinkedIn profile, it makes no sense. It goes left and right and up and down. So there are all kinds of ways to have a successful career. I'm going to talk about a few of them. Some, like my friend Mozart here, are born creative geniuses. And they know at a very young age what it is they're meant to do. Maybe these people are the lucky ones. Maybe the mathematicians and the musicians and the chefs who know what they want to be when they're a kid. They're the lucky ones to know their life's purpose so early. Maybe not. Maybe they miss out on an entire lifetime of accidents and an entire lifetime of experimentation. Take President Harry Truman. I don't know how many of you know this, but at 40 years old, Harry Truman was broke, nearly bankrupt, a failure in business, unemployed and unemployable. Now, Mozart and Truman both went on to accomplish great things, very different paths. In preparing this talk, I actually found a new hero. My new hero is Brian May. Brian May achieved immortality as the lead guitarist of Queen. We were all kids. We all wanted to be movie stars and rock stars, and he did it. But I learned something. When Brian was playing guitar for Queen, he designed and built all the electronics that created the harmonic effects that Queen was famous for. And he did this in the 70s, long before this technology became ubiquitous. And then he went on to lead a rich and full second life. 7 years ago, Brian got his PhD in astrophysics. It's amazing. Successful careers rarely happen by accident. You need the dedication and the discipline to transform yourself from competent and hardworking to an exceptional performer. It's no longer enough to just lock yourself up in a garret and put your nose to the grindstone and work hard. You need the help of other people. You need relationships. You can't just be the biggest, strongest person in the tribe. Yes, you have to be smart and you have to be curious. But what you need to be able to do is further others, further the success of others, strengthen those around you, because they, in turn, are going to further your own success and they're going to strengthen you. It's only together, as a team, supporting each other, that we're able to create a climate that nourishes the creative soul and nourishes the transformation where we all can go from good to great to exceptional. So over the course of the 20 years of my career, I've been playing and experimenting with the ingredients, and I think I figured out the recipe that allows us to create such a nurturing and nourishing environment. An environment that gives us all the best chance of success of finding our best selves. A company culture, it's a living, breathing organism. You need to nourish it and nurture it along the way. So if you allow me a few more minutes, I would like to share with you what I think those ingredients are. The first ingredient, the most crucial ingredient, only you can bring. I can't do it for you, no one can. Acquiring self-awareness is your responsibility as the member of any team. And in fact, it's your responsibility as a human. Self-awareness is the #1 predictor of future success, because self-awareness determines your capacity for growth. Now, self-awareness can manifest itself as intellect, curiosity, creativity, personality, experience. But over the long arc of your career, it has to come to encompass all of those qualities. You may know what causes you to act, but do you know what causes you to react? Without knowing yourself and what motivates you under the surface, it's impossible to know what motivates your behavior and what causes you to react to certain stimuli, good or bad. My friend Mark Maltz, who's in the audience today, he's been my executive coach for the last 3 or 4 years, and we spent a lot of time talking about the reptile brain, the part of your brain that just reacts. And here's the thing about the reptile brain. It does not learn from mistakes. Your reptile brain carries out a set of pre-programmed actions based on whatever inputs it receives. The triggers set off the reptile brain. So to get past it, you have to do truthful exploration. Truthful exploration into your joys, into your traumas, into your desires, into your needs, into your habits and your peccadillos. It's necessary to understand why you do the things that you do. Reflecting on your shortcomings is a choice you have to make. If you don't understand where a habit comes from, how can you possibly change it? Now, of course, reflecting on your shortcomings, it's incredibly difficult. Your mind does not want to walk down these dark avenues and dark alleyways. The psyche is built to defend itself. But here's the thing. The things that happen to you as a kid and as an adolescent and as a young adult, they calcify. And they're impacting everything you do now as an adult, your decision-making, your creativity. Walling off those negatives protects you when you're a child. It limits you when you're an adult. Now, the next thing I wrote down because I want to get it right, and it's a very dense sentence. You empower yourself to internalize life's lessons and achieve new levels of personal growth and professional success if you can closely and critically observe yourself, particularly when you're exposing the raw wounds of past damage that may be impacting your behavior. In a nutshell, self-improvement is impossible without self-awareness. So what's the point? Is Jesse telling everyone to go to therapy? No, that's not my point. When I hire people, I'm looking to build heterogeneous teams of people who not only know their strengths and weaknesses, but are willing to explore their strengths and weaknesses. People with diverse skill sets, yes, but more importantly, people with diverse life experiences. You need to demand from the team members around you and the people you hire that they understand what's motivating their decision-making, that they understand what's influencing their creative output, and that they all have a willingness to do the work necessary to improve themselves. If the first ingredient is self-awareness, the second ingredient is candor. And if you take a moment and you think about it, ultimately, candor is the only problem-solving technique that works in any situation. Candor goes hand in hand with self-awareness. You cannot be appropriately candid if you're not self-aware. Now, a culture of candor starts at the top of an organization. There can be no distance between what we say we value and what we actually demonstrate. So that means a culture of candor begins with me. I have to be sufficiently self-aware and sufficiently confident to openly discuss my strengths, my weaknesses, my successes, and my failures, and most importantly, what I'm learning along the way. Sharing the lessons I'm learning along the way, that builds trust. And hey, if I can't manage myself, how can I be expected to manage anybody else? The third ingredient is going to seem a little counterintuitive, and it's respect. But respect is the byproduct of building a culture that's centered around speaking the truth, not the prerequisite. Because when you build a culture centered around speaking the truth, what you're doing is creating an environment of mutual respect. Such a culture imbues your team with courage, gives them the strength to take risk, and to push the business continually through new and more difficult thresholds. We are actually showing respect when we assume that someone has the strength to listen to what we have to say and the character to learn from it. Now, candor is a very powerful instrument. It could be the most powerful instrument in your toolbox, but you have to know how to wield it. You have to know how to be respectful. Blunt is not the same thing as candid. So what's the rule? The rule's simple. Don't be a jerk. And if you don't know what movie this is, Google it and watch it. It's fantastic. Part of having EQ is having a mix of empathy, listening skills, communication skills, and strong relationships. You need all those things to know when somebody is ready for feedback, ready for a more candid conversation. You can't just assume that someone has the self-awareness to listen to what you have to say. And remember, listening is very different than hearing. Just because I want to have a candid conversation doesn't mean the other person is prepared. You have to assess the listening readiness of the audience and the communicating skills of the speaker. Otherwise, the message will get lost, or worse, the message will get understood, and that can lead anywhere. Now, my job as a leader is all about telling hard truths. I have to tell hard truths to my team. I have to tell hard truths to my CEO. No one's going to listen to me if they don't believe I have their best interests at heart. No one's going to listen to me if they don't believe that I genuinely am trying to push them to a better self, to a better place, trying to help them become better versions of themselves. Being candid is about being open and being genuine with your cares and your concerns. It's about giving advice with pure intentions. The best feedback I ever received from a member of my team, I received on my last day at Squarespace 6 months ago. One of the more junior people on my team, she said to me, "Jesse, when you were hard, and you were hard a lot, I never once doubted where you were trying to get me to." It's the best feedback I ever received, and it's exactly the point of what I try to do. So here's what you have to do. You have to reinforce to your teams that they should have the courage necessary to speak the truth. And when they do that, you tell them, I'm going to invest in this character, I want to invest in this behavior, and I'm going to reward this behavior. The next ingredient is trust. And trust is the obvious result from everything we've talked about so far. The more self-aware, the more candid, the more honest, the more trustworthy. To learn from your mistakes, you have to put them on a table and have them sit in the light of day. Leaders who are repeatedly willing to be vulnerable, leaders who are able to candidly assess themselves in front of their teams and discuss their strengths and weaknesses, their failures and their successes in a very self-aware manner, those leaders build really powerful bonds of trust with their team. Dale Carnegie, in one of his more famous books, shares this great example of a young executive who went on to become CEO of a company. And this guy attributed all his success to a very simple habit. On Saturday mornings, he'd wake up and he'd sit down at the kitchen table and he'd write down everything that went wrong the week before. And then he'd sit down and he'd write down everything he was going to do better in the coming week. Really smart. But let's take it a step further. Do that with your teams on Monday morning. Share what went wrong. Share what you can do better. That level of vulnerability isn't going to just build trust between leaders and teammates. It's going to build trust between the teammates themselves. Strong bonds of trust, deep reservoirs of trust. And you're going to need those. Because creative life and startup life, it's characterized by one thing, roller coasters. And the stronger your team is, the more likely you are to have the perseverance to be able to ride the ups and downs of building your business. And the thing with vulnerability, it's not a weakness to show weakness. It's not a weakness to show weakness. The fear of failure actually gets in the way of creativity. Once you accept that perfection is impossible, that perfection is actually the enemy of excellence, that you don't need to be perfect to be successful, you'll actually initiate more, you'll risk more, you'll achieve more. Innovation only comes from failure. Or T.S. Eliot, he put it much more eloquently than I did, only those who will risk going too far can possibly find out how far one can go. I want, and in fact, I need you to tell me the truth. Sometimes the truth hurts. Sometimes the truth takes a long time to process, but it's never not worth it. It is never not worth it. Tough news delivered plainly means we can attack the problem and get to the other side of it so we can all get back to doing what we do best and what we love to do, building and creating and making. As a leader, set that example. And when you observe your teammates taking that same risk, reward them for it. Now, the final ingredient is fun. Okay, because without fun, what the hell's the point of waking up in the morning? But the final ingredient, it almost takes care of itself. When you're working on something you love, and you're working with people you love working with, it's fun. And I hope all of you have experienced that at work. I certainly have. Etsy and Squarespace, most fun places in the world. We all strive to surround ourselves with exceptionally smart, exceptionally curious, exceptionally talented and creative people who are unafraid of anything, who can break through any obstacle. We should all be blessed to spend our days with people whose company we enjoy, whose lives enrich our own, and who are really quite simply, who are nice, considering all the hours and all the days that we're going to spend together. A creative genius who's got a little bit of ill temperament, I can deal with it. A maniacal wonderkind who nobody wants on their team, life is too short. Robert Townsend is the CEO who transformed Avis into the giant company you know it is today, and he coined a very famous phrase, getting there isn't half the fun, it's all the fun. And if you've worked at these companies with people you love and work that you love, you know exactly what Robert was talking about. When this isn't true, something has to change. Now, if that something is you, well, look in the mirror and get started. And if that something is at the top of your organization, you have to be courageous. You have to ask yourself a question. Does the company I work for share the same values that I care about? And now you're all asking yourselves a million questions. But how, Jesse? But how? Sounds great. So I think I know a couple questions that are probably predominant in the room. The first one, how do I know if a company shares these values before I join the company? Well, that's the easy question. You have to do due diligence. You have to figure out what values the company says it has and test those values. Interviewing is not a one-way street. It's a two-way street. And I promise you, interviewing is about a lot more than figuring out if you're going to like working with the people you're talking to. The second question some of you may be asking is, Jesse, is it possible to guide a CEO or a founder to being more candid, more self-aware, more vulnerable? The answer is maybe. Here's the thing, it's a lot like marriage. If you go into it expecting to change the other person a little bit, you're going to spend your whole life disappointed. So I'm going to take that question and I'm going to change it. Is it possible to change a company culture and guide it toward these values? Make it more candid, make it more self-aware, make it more open, make it more vulnerable? The answer is yes. If you take personal responsibility, if you make a point of every day learning and teaching, coaching and mentoring, and aligning all the people around you around the same values. If you can do that, if you can bring that responsibility into your company, then yes, it is possible. I opened this talk and I said, life is short. So here's the thing. You're going to spend a third of your adult life at work. You're going to spend a third of your adult life with friends and family. You're going to spend a third of your adult life mostly sleeping in that bed behind me. I came here today to speak about work climate, but the values and the principles that I shared with you, they work every hour of every day. They work at work. They work in friendship. And I can tell you, they work in marriage. For without self-awareness, you can't experience pleasure. Without candor, you can't express and obtain your needs. Without trust, you can't connect. Without failure, you can't learn. And without fun, the qualities that make life special are very much diminished. I want to close by sharing a quick story with you. This is a photo I took last week with my iPhone. I took my wife and my 3 kids on a Disney cruise, and if you've got kids, it's awesome. We took a Disney cruise, and on the way from Mexico to the Bahamas, the cruise ship stopped. It stopped and picked up this boat. 7 men rowing from Cuba to Florida. Now, I didn't know this, but rafts are picked up in the Caribbean all the time. I didn't know this because I never thought about it. Disney, which only has 2 cruise ships in the Caribbean, picks up a raft every 2 or 3 weeks. Men and women willing to risk everything, literally everything, for a chance at a better life. So this is my opportunity to share a little self-awareness with you. As I was preparing this talk this week, I repeatedly found myself getting emotional. My parents only came to this country 45 years ago. My grandparents survived the Holocaust in Poland 65 years ago, 70 years ago. And I have the privilege and the honor to be up on stage talking about feelings and creating terrific work environments when so many people in the world are just looking for a better opportunity. So I want to thank you for this. I really appreciate it. Thank you.